The streets are playing with my mind. I'm losing everything in sight.
Good evening, welcome back to the channel, and let's have a little chat about the US Grand Prix 2021 which took place yesterday. And what a fascinating race it was. By the way, a big thank you to everybody who joined us for the watch along for that one. We're hoping to do one for the Mexican Grand Prix in just under 2 weeks time. Can't wait to see that. So yes, let's get on to the race itself. And we know so. It was Max Verstappen on pole position, Hamilton was in second, and Perez was in third. Could Perez do anything to help out his teammate? I didn't know, to be honest. I actually didn't know. Perez was due to put in a good result. It's been a little while since he's done that, and he hasn't really been in the mix like this for quite some time. So it was unknown. Anyhow, the race got underway and it was Hamilton who got the better start. Believe it or not, it was Hamilton. He got his elbows out. He pushed Max off track a little bit, but there were no penalties or anything for that. It was absolutely 100% a racing incident. It's what you would expect in the first lap of a race. Verstappen did put Hamilton under a lot of pressure from that point forward. He was consistently within a second of Hamilton, although DRS just didn't seem to do the trick for the Red Bull for whatever reason. But there wasn't a lot of overtaking in general at the track. So this circuit in Austin in Texas, it's track position is king there. Track position is king, and that's a really big fact. And Hamilton has benefited from that in the past. So here he was in first place, leading the race. Very good opportunity for him, I must say. So as I was talking there, Verstappen did put him under pressure, and then actually on lap 11, so very very early on, Verstappen made a pit stop. And he changed on to the hard tyre, so he started the race on medium, just like most people were on the medium tyre except for Sainz and Tsunoda, who started on the soft tyre. Early pit stop went well, and it was obvious Red Bull were trying to do the undercut on Mercedes. And as it turned out, when Hamilton did eventually stop, he was 16 seconds behind Max Verstappen when he came out of the pits. So not only had he lost the lead, but he had lost a huge chunk of time. So the undercut was very powerful. Now, there was a second stop coming up, so it wasn't over at that point. Hamilton closed the gap down. He was taking 2-3 tenths a second. 2-3 tenths a lap out of Verstappen, so it was by no means over. He closed that gap right down onto Verstappen, and then out of nowhere Verstappen pitted again, so he took a second early pit stop, once again trying the undercut. Would he have enough laps though to keep those tires going? You know, was he going to destroy the tires with that amount of laps? When Hamilton eventually pitted, I think it was 8 laps difference between Hamilton and Verstappen in the pits. He came back out 18 seconds behind Verstappen. And at this point, that was it. We felt like the race was absolutely over at this stage, but Hamilton started to do it again. He started to put in the fast laps. He started to reel in Verstappen, and there were two things you were looking at. We were looking so intently at what were the lap times. How was that gap going? You know, looking at the gap, and then how many laps were left in the race. Would he be able to catch Verstappen by the end of the race? And then the big question was, would he be able to overtake Verstappen at the end of the race? As it turned out, back markers came into play a little bit, and Hamilton just didn't have enough time. He got to within 1 second of Verstappen, but there was no opportunity to try and pull a move on Verstappen. You could see Verstappen's tires were shot at that stage. Really gone. He was playing it safe though. You know, he's putting the car in the center of the corners. He wasn't using too much curb, so it worked. It worked for Verstappen, and that's a Mercedes circuit. So that was a huge win for Mercedes, a huge win for Max Verstappen and his world title credentials. So ultimately, where was the winning and losing of the race? It came down to the pit strategy, and Red Bull got one over on Mercedes this time for pit strategy. Mercedes should be aware, you know, that they've won there enough at this circuit. They should have been aware that track position was the key. Also, probably not a good race for Valtteri Bottas to be taking an engine penalty as well, considering how difficult it is to make your way through the field, and he really did struggle to make his way through the field, as we saw saw as well. Well, what could Mercedes have done, because it was a very early pit stop from Verstappen that kicked off this whole sequence. I suppose the only thing Mercedes could have done would be more reactive. Don't wait 6 to 8 laps to make your pit stop, because the undercut was powerful. If Hamilton had been watching Verstappen and pitted at the same time, of course, the Mercedes crew would need to be ready for that. Or even 1 lap later, it would have reduced the damage so much. Maybe the fine tuning of that strategy would be somewhere in the middle. Instead of 8 laps for the second pit stop, why not 4 laps? The gap wouldn't have been as big. It wouldn't have been 18 seconds. And he would have had a little bit more time to catch Verstappen. That could have been where it was. But, you know, hindsight is a great thing, and we can talk about that all we want. It just didn't work out for Merc on the day. Now, it's not an awful result for Hamilton. He still got second place, and he falls only 12 points behind Verstappen, because he also managed to get the fastest lap. Let's have a very quick look then at the final classification of the drivers. So it was Verstappen who won, Hamilton came in second, Perez came third. A bit of a lonely third place for Perez. He never got into the battle for first and second. Charles Leclerc was closing him down ever so slightly during the race. It finished up about 10 seconds gap between those two, but it was a good showing from Charles Leclerc, who came in fourth. Ricciardo then was in fifth. He was a good bit behind Leclerc. 16 and 24 seconds behind Leclerc. Bottas then was 4 seconds further back in 6th place. Then we had Sainz in 7th, Norris in 8th, Tsunoda in 9th, and Sebastian Vettel got the last point in 10th place. Then outside of the points in 11th we had Giovinazzi, 12th we had Stroll, 13th we had Raikkonen. Raikkonen was running so well there for a while as well, and he spun close to the end of the race. He was in 10th place. He was coming under pressure from Vettel, and it just didn't work out for him, unfortunately. The 2018 winner ends outside the points in unlucky number 13 for him. Then in 14th was Russell, 15th was Latifi, 16th was Schumacher, and 17th was Mazepin. Alonso, Ocon and Gasly all retired from the race with differing car issues. It looked like Ocon had some kind of suspension issue, although it sounded like the engine, I have to say. Alonso had a rear wing issue, and Gasly, I'm not sure exactly what was wrong with Gasly. No, it was Gasly who had the suspension issue, that sounded like an engine issue. And for Ocon, I can't remember what happened to Ocon. Maybe let us know in the comments. Alright then, so let's have a look at the championship standings and how does this all play out following that. So in first place in the championship now, it's Max Verstappen on 287.5 points, and then 12 points behind him on 275.5, it's Lewis Hamilton. Then there's a big gap back, 90.5 points back to Bottas in third place. Perez then is in fourth place on 150 points, so he has a gap of 35 points up to Bottas. So he's still ever so slightly in contention for third place, but it'll be a tall ask. Maybe Perez can win at his home race next round. Would be great. Norris then is in fifth place, and Norris has actually dropped from fourth to fifth. Perez's good result moving him up the championship standings there. Another change up to sixth from seventh is Leclerc, and his teammate Sainz then drops to seventh. So very tight between the pair of them, only 5.5 points between them. Ricciardo remains in 8th, Gasly remains in 9th, and Alonso remains in 10th. And so let's have a look at the Constructors Championship. Constructors standings, Mercedes are up on top, 460.5 points. Then 23 points behind them we have Red Bull on 437.5, so they have gained a little bit of ground on Mercedes this weekend at the US Grand Prix. McLaren are on 254 points, so that's a grand total of 183.5 points behind Red Bull. So they're not in contention for the Constructors Championship at all, but they have a big battle with Ferrari, who are on 250.5 points, only 3.5 points behind McLaren. Very, very tight battle. Then we go a long way back. We have Alpine in 5th, AlphaTauri in 6th, Aston Martin in 7th, Williams in 8th, Alfa Romeo in 9th, and Haas are in 10th place. And interestingly, the battle between Alpine and AlphaTauri, there's only a gap of 10 points between both of those as well. So a lot to play for. So that's my very quick recap of the race yesterday. As I said, it was an enjoyable race. It was immensely interesting with regards to the pit strategy and whether or not Lewis Hamilton could close that gap on Verstappen. He did close the gap, but just not by enough. He wasn't able to make a move on Verstappen before the end of the race, and so Red Bull take a very important victory at what would be traditionally a Mercedes circuit. Now, in saying that, Mercedes have a chance for revenge at the next race because, of course, that is Mexico, which is traditionally a Red Bull circuit. So, payback can be quite sweet. Anyhow, thank you very much for joining us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video, leave us a comment as well. Love to hear from you, and also subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you want. If you're listening on podcast, thank you very much for your support as well. Really, really appreciate it. Add us to your favorites for podcasts and get notified of new episodes when they become available. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon.